The Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority said that Canada and the U.S. agreed to postpone opening that bridge so that both sides could resolve outstanding issues. Why did Canada agree to that, and what are the outstanding issues for this country?
Thanks for the question. Well, at the request of the United States, we agreed to delay the opening and take the necessary time to resolve outstanding issues. There's a few issues that have been raised, and this is a collaborative approach. As I said yesterday, there's not great drama here. We're going to work through some issues that have come up, and for a bridge that is going to be in place and serve Canadians, Americans, others for decades, a question of a few weeks is time well spent.
A massive cross-border project was fully built, approved, and ready to open. Then, without warning, the celebration was called off and the gates stayed closed. What surfaced next exposed a deeper problem, one that raised serious questions about who is really making decisions and how far political uncertainty can reach. On Thursday, June 11th, 2026, one day before a scheduled ribbon-cutting ceremony, and 4 days before the bridge was set to open to traffic, the Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority abruptly canceled the entire event. The $6.4 billion Gordie Howe International Bridge, physically complete, technically approved, and staffed on both sides of the border, did not open. The reason given was sparse. The reason that emerged over the following 48 hours revealed something specific about how the Canada-US relationship now functions at every level. From infrastructure to trade, to the basic question of who in Washington actually has authority over what. WDBA Interim CEO Chuck Andry issued the official statement, "Canada and the United States have agreed to delay the opening of the bridge, taking the necessary time to resolve any outstanding issues. We appreciate the efforts of workers on both sides of the border to get the bridge to its current state of readiness. Friday's ceremony on the Windsor side will not be proceeding. No technical issue was cited. No safety concern was cited. The bridge, according to a Canadian source with direct knowledge of the planning, had all the technical approvals it needed to precede the Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority. The Crown Corporation, responsible for the bridge's construction and administration, had cleared every box." Prime Minister Mark Carney addressed the delay directly at a news conference in Toronto. "At the request of the United States, we agreed to delay the opening and take the necessary time to resolve outstanding issues. A few issues that have been raised," Carney said. He had used almost identical language 2 days earlier. There's no big drama here. He described a series of technical aspects that needed to be worked through without elaborating further, and added, "Everyone is working hard to make sure the bridge is open as soon as possible. If it takes a little longer, it'll take a little longer." This will benefit Canadians, Americans, businesses, tourists, and residents for decades and decades to come. Carney's framing calm, deliberately undramatic, attributing the delay to an American request rather than a Canadian failure, is itself a data point about how Ottawa is choosing to manage friction with Washington in mid-2026. The bridge was ready. Canada said yes to delaying it anyway at the other government's request without a public fight. The sequence of events behind that request is where the story becomes genuinely revealing. According to multiple sources briefed on the internal discussions, the invitations for Friday's ribbon cutting went out earlier in the week following a phone call between Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, a Democrat, and Susie Wiles, Trump's chief of staff. Whitmer believed, based on that call, that she had the White House's sign-off. The Associated Press reported the opening was moving forward on that basis. But Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and U.S. Ambassador to Canada, Pete Hoekstra, the two officials Trump had specifically appointed to lead bridge-related discussions with Canada, were not consulted and were not informed. According to the Detroit News, Lutnick learned about the planned ribbon cutting on Monday night while attending a New York Knicks game with Trump at Madison Square Garden. He was, in the words of one source, caught off guard. Hoekstra told the Detroit News on Thursday, "Lots of people objected because they were caught off guard." What followed was, according to a source briefed by the Trump administration, someone from the administration contacting Canadian Intergovernmental Affairs Minister Dominic LeBlanc directly to demand the bridge not open. One White House official denied that anyone in the building had either authorized the opening or tried to stop it, a denial that sits awkwardly next to the documented sequence of events in which an opening that one part of the administration had apparently greenlit was then reversed by another part of the same administration within days. The substantive issue behind the delay, according to the Globe and Mail's reporting, centers on the Ambassador Bridge, the privately owned crossing operated by the Moran family that has handled the overwhelming majority of Windsor-Detroit commercial traffic for nearly a century. Lutnick and Hoekstra have reportedly been working on a deal with the Morans to ensure the Ambassador Bridge does not lose all of its toll revenue once the Gordie Howe opens, and offers truckers a toll rate of roughly $12 per axle compared to the Ambassador's $20 to $28 per axle. The Globe and Mail reported that Lutnick and Hoekstra want to conclude that arrangement before the rival bridge opens, which would mean the opening of a publicly built, binationally owned bridge connecting two of North America's largest cities is being timed around the resolution of a private commercial arrangement involving the owners of its competitor. The New York Times separately reported that Matthew Moroun, of the family that owns the Ambassador Bridge, met with Lutnick shortly before Trump's February 2026 social media post attacking the Gordie Howe project, the post in which Trump first threatened to block the bridge's opening entirely, demanding compensation for what he characterized as an unfair arrangement with Canada. The Gordie Howe Bridge is co-owned by the governments of Canada and Michigan. Under the 2012 agreement signed with then Republican Governor Rick Snyder, Canada financed the entire $4.7 billion construction costs and will recoup that investment through tolls before revenue sharing with Michigan begins. Trump himself endorsed the project during his first term. Snyder posted on social media following the delay that he remains optimistic the bridge will open sooner or later and will stand for 125 plus years, adding that the current situation should not take away from what will be a brighter future due to the new crossing. Notably, Snyder, the Republican who got the project rolling a decade ago, crossed party lines in 2020 to endorse Joe Biden, a detail that limits whatever informal influence he might otherwise carry with the current administration. Windsor Mayor Drew Dilkins, who has been the most consistently outspoken local voice throughout the entire saga, suggested the delay was directly tied to the broader trade negotiations. Although we would all like the Gordie Howe Bridge to open, Canada need not fall on bent knee to make it happen. He told the Detroit News he understood the bridge to be technically ready. I think I echo the community spirit on this, that we're just really excited at the prospect that this is going to finally open after so many years. Governor Whitmer's office offered little explanation for the reversal. Spokesperson Stacey LaRouche wrote only, "The governor looks forward to attending the ribbon-cutting ceremony when it happens." Whitmer herself told reporters she was not entirely surprised by the delay, but remained hopeful it would not last long. That woman from Michigan, as Trump has referred to her, might need to re-engage directly with the White House to get the opening back on track. What this episode demonstrates is layered. At the highest level, both governments continue to affirm the bridge's importance. Nobody involved, on either side of the border, has suggested abandoning a $4.7 billion crossing that connects the busiest trade corridor in North America. Carney's insistence that there is no big drama and his framing of the delay as a request he simply accommodated reflects a Canadian government choosing not to escalate over an infrastructure project whose underlying value to both countries nobody disputes. But the episode also shows that bilateral cooperation, even on a project where every formal approval has been completed, can be paused by internal disagreements within a single government disagreements that a foreign government then has to absorb and manage. Canada did not cause this delay. Canada agreed to it. The bridge that was supposed to symbolize binational infrastructure cooperation instead became, in its final days before opening, a case study in how a single phone call between a state governor and a White House chief of staff can be overridden by two cabinet-level officials who were not in the loop, and how the country on the other side of that internal disagreement has no choice but to wait for it to resolve.